My dad screamed, "You cost us everything," while giving nothing back, then told me to disappear. So I quietly moved out overnight, and that actually cost them everything when they found out. Let me introduce you to my wonderful family. First up is my older brother Tyler, 34, who peaked in high school and never recovered. This guy still talks about his football glory days like they happened yesterday instead of 16 years ago. He works part-time at a sporting goods store and spends most of his free time reliving the good old days when people actually cared about his touchdowns. Tyler's the type of guy who shows up to every family gathering wearing his old Letterman jacket, even though it barely fits anymore. He's got this whole victim complex about how he could have gone pro if life hadn't screwed him over. Reality check. The guy couldn't even get a college scholarship, but somehow it's everyone else's fault that he's pushing 35 and living paycheck to paycheck. Then there's my baby sister Chloe, 26, who thinks she's an influencer because she has 847 Instagram followers. She calls herself an entrepreneur, but her business model is buying cheap jewelry online and reselling it at ridiculous markups to her 3 customers. She posts those motivational quotes about being a self-made woman while living rent-free in her parents' basement. Chloe's entire personality revolves around looking successful on social media. She'll spend her last $200 on a designer knockoff purse just to take photos with it, then eat ramen noodles for 2 weeks. The girl has never held a real job for more than 6 months because she thinks she's above normal work. My parents are just as bad. Dad's a middle manager at some insurance company who thinks he's a financial genius because he reads investment blogs. He's always got some get-rich-quick scheme that requires just a little startup capital from yours truly. Mom's a part-time real estate agent who hasn't sold a house in 2 years, but still drives around in a leased BMW she can't afford because of her professional image. And me, I was the weird kid who actually cared about school and planning for the future. While Tyler was getting popular under the bleachers and Chloe was learning makeup tutorials, I was starting my own landscaping business at 16 and saving every penny. Yeah, I know landscaping doesn't sound glamorous, but here's the thing about working with your hands and building something from nothing. It teaches you the value of money and hard work. Started with just a beat-up pickup truck and some borrowed equipment. Spent my teenage years mowing lawns, planting gardens, and designing outdoor spaces while my siblings were out finding themselves. By the time I graduated high school, I had a solid client base and enough money saved to expand. While my classmates were going into debt for college degrees they'd never use, I was building a legitimate business. Within 5 years, I had 3 crews working for me. Within 10 years, I was the go-to landscape architect for every upscale neighborhood in the county. Now I'm running a company that does everything from basic lawn care to million-dollar commercial projects. We've done work for shopping centers, office complexes, and some of the most expensive homes in the state. Last year alone, my company pulled in just over $800,000 in revenue, and my personal take-home was more than my entire family makes combined. But here's where my best friend comes into the story. And this guy basically saved my sanity during everything that happened. Let's call him Ryan. We've been tight since middle school, and he's the only person who saw through my family's garbage from day one. Ryan's a contract lawyer who specializes in property disputes and business agreements. Smart as heck, sharp as a tack, and has this ability to see through people's nonsense instantly. He's also got a dark sense of humor that kept me sane when I wanted to lose my mind over my family's entitlement. Ryan was the first person to point out that my family only called me when they needed money. Dude, he said one day, while we were working on his backyard patio, "When's the last time any of them asked how you're doing?" That question hit me like a sledgehammer because I literally couldn't remember a single time. Throughout this whole story, Ryan was my voice of reason and my secret weapon. Whenever I'd start feeling guilty or second-guessing myself, he'd remind me of all the times they'd treated me like garbage. "Don't you dare go soft on these leeches," he'd say. "They made their choices, now let them live with the consequences." That guy was about to become the mastermind behind the most satisfying payback story of my life. The money requests started small, but got progressively more ridiculous over the years. It began with Tyler calling me up all casual like, "Hey Mason, think you could help me out with my truck payment this month? Had some unexpected expenses." What he didn't mention was that his unexpected expenses were blowing $2,000 at the casino with his unemployed buddies. Then Chloe needed help with her business investments, which meant buying more cheap jewelry to mark up 400% for her non-existent customer base. But she couldn't just ask for money like a normal person. She had to pitch it like some amazing opportunity. "Mason, I'm scaling my brand and need capital for inventory. This could be huge for both of us, right?" Because her friendship bracelet empire was definitely the next big thing. Dad started hitting me up for loans that we both knew would never get paid back. First, it was the roof that supposedly needed emergency repairs. Then the HVAC system that was about to die. Then a kitchen renovation because Mom saw something on Pinterest and decided their perfectly functional kitchen was embarrassing. Each request came with guilt trips about how family helps family and how I should be grateful for everything they did for me growing up. What exactly did they do for me growing up? Made me feel weird for caring about grades instead of popularity? Forgot my birthday 3 years in a row? Missed my high school graduation because Tyler was hungover from some party? Real family of the year material right there. The requests kept escalating. Tyler's insurance, Chloe's car payments, Dad's boat loan, Mom's credit card bills. Before I knew it, I was basically funding 3 entire households while working 60-hour weeks to keep my business growing. And the crazy part, they acted like it was normal, like I owed them this lifestyle just because I'd been successful. No gratitude, no acknowledgement, just expectation. They'd call with demands, not requests. I need you to transfer $1,500 by tomorrow. Or, can you cover my rent this month? Never please or thank you. Or, I really appreciate this, just entitlement wrapped up in family obligation. Ryan kept warning me. You're enabling them. They're never going to respect you as long as you keep writing checks. But I didn't listen. I kept thinking if I just helped them out a little more, maybe they'd finally see me as someone worth respecting instead of just the family weirdo who happened to make money. The breaking point had been building for months. But I was too blind to see it. I kept playing the good son, the reliable brother, the family safety net. I convinced myself I was building something meaningful, creating a legacy of taking care of the people I loved. Boy, was I wrong about that. Last Christmas was when everything started unraveling, and I was too stupid to realize it at the time. I decided to host at my place since I finally had a house big enough for everyone. We're talking a 4,000-foot custom home with a gourmet kitchen finished basement and enough space to seat 20 people comfortably. I went all out, hired a catering company, had the house professionally decorated, even brought in a chef to prepare a 5-course meal. The whole spread cost me nearly $6,000. But I wanted to show my family that their weird little brother had actually made something of himself. They showed up fashionably late, like they were doing me a favor. Tyler brought his new girlfriend, Jessica, some 22-year-old he'd met at a bar who spent the entire night taking selfies in my house and asking personal questions about my income. So like, are you rich or just comfortable, she asked while posing next to my Christmas tree. Chloe brought her current boyfriend, some aspiring musician who kept asking if I wanted to invest in his rap career. They spent dinner talking about her brand partnerships, which meant 3 Instagram posts for companies that paid her in free jewelry worth maybe $20 total. But the real slap in the face was Tyler's speech. This guy stands up halfway through dinner, raises his glass, and launches into this whole thing about family and togetherness. I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Family is everything. You know we stick together through thick and thin. Mason's house is incredible, but what really matters is having each other. Not one word about who paid for the dinner, not one acknowledgement that I'd spent weeks planning this and thousands of dollars making it perfect. Just generic Hallmark card nonsense while they stuffed their faces with prime rib I'd bought. Ryan was there, the only non-family member I'd invited, and I could see him getting more irritated by the minute. After everyone left, he looked at me and said, "They just spent 4 hours in your house treating you like hired help. When are you going to wake up?" That night, something started shifting in my brain. The fog was lifting, and I was beginning to see what Ryan had been trying to tell me for years. My family didn't love me. They loved what I could do for them. There's a difference, and it's a big one. 3 months later, everything exploded in the most spectacular way possible. It was a Tuesday night in March around 9 p.m. I just finished a site visit for a major commercial project, a shopping center, that was going to net me about $200,000 over 6 months. I was feeling good thinking about grabbing some takeout and catching up on paperwork. Then my phone rang. Dad's name on the screen. Dad doesn't call unless someone's dead or he needs money. So I picked up, expecting bad news. "Mason, we need to have a serious conversation. This attitude of yours needs to stop right now." I'm confused as heck. What attitude? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. Your mother's been upset for weeks because of how you've been treating everyone. Tyler told me about the conversation you had with him, how you made him feel like garbage for asking for help. The conversation he's referring to. Tyler had called me the week before asking for another $3,000 because he'd blown his paycheck on some new truck accessories and couldn't make rent. I told him I'd pay his rent one more time, but he needed to start budgeting like an adult. Apparently suggesting my 34-year-old brother should manage his money was being judgmental. All you do is wave money around to feel superior. Dad continues, his voice getting sharper. But you've never actually contributed anything meaningful to this family. You think because you cut grass for rich people that makes you better than us. If you had any self-respect, you'd stop acting like we owe you gratitude and just disappear. The line goes quiet. I'm standing in my kitchen looking at a family photo from Christmas, and something inside me breaks. Not angry breaks, but clarity breaks. Like when you've been staring at one of those optical illusion pictures, and suddenly the hidden image pops out clear as day. You know what, Dad? You're absolutely right. I should disappear. And I hung up on him. I immediately called Ryan. It's happening. The nuclear option. We're really doing this. About time, he said. I'll start drafting paperwork. This is going to be more satisfying than watching your favorite team win the championship. I spent the next 2 hours making phone calls. My bank, my accountant, my business manager, every automatic payment, every standing loan, every financial connection to my family terminated immediately. The ATM was officially out of order. Then I did something I'd been dreaming about for months. I booked a one-way ticket to New Zealand, left 3 days later without telling anyone where I was going. Ryan was my only contact back home, and he promised to keep me updated on the chaos. I'll document everything, he said. This is going to be the greatest meltdown in family history. New Zealand was exactly what I needed. No guilt trips, no emergency calls, no entitled relatives treating me like their personal bank. Just mountains, clear water, and the kind of peace that comes from being literally on the other side of the planet from your problems. I rented a cabin in Queenstown for 6 weeks, spent my days hiking, fishing, and learning to paraglide. For the first time in years, I woke up each morning without immediately checking my phone for crisis messages from family members. Ryan was sending me daily updates, and each one was more entertaining than the last. Week 1, complete radio silence. Nobody even noticed I was gone because they were all too self-absorbed to pay attention. Week 2. Chloe's car insurance lapsed, and her car got impounded. Tyler's truck payment bounced, and he started getting repo warnings. Dad got his first notice about the mortgage being behind. Week 3, the panic calls started. Chloe called me 23 times in one day. I didn't answer a single one, but Ryan was monitoring the family group chat I'd left and sending me screenshots. Week 4, Tyler got evicted from his apartment. Chloe had to sell her camera equipment to buy groceries. Mom and Dad were suddenly 3 months behind on bills they'd never worried about before. The family group chat messages were pure entertainment. Chloe, has anyone actually talked to Mason? My car got impounded and he's not responding to anything. Tyler, he's probably just throwing a tantrum. You know how he gets when he doesn't get enough attention. Mom, I'm sure he'll come to his senses soon. He's just being emotional. Dad, complete silence. Pride's a tough thing to swallow. But by week 5, the tone completely shifted. Mom, this isn't funny anymore. The bank called about foreclosure proceedings. Where is he, Tyler? Mason. If you're seeing this, we seriously need to talk. This has gone way too far. Chloe, I'm about to lose my apartment. Please, just call me back. I'm sorry for whatever we did. Dad, still crickets. Ryan was having the time of his life documenting everything. Your brother's sleeping on someone's couch. Your sister moved back in with your parents, and your dad tried to use your business credit to get a loan. The bank literally laughed at him. But the best part was what happened when they tried to get other family members to bail them out. They'd been telling everyone I'd had some kind of breakdown and abandoned my responsibilities without warning. Problem was, my cousin Amy had been watching this dysfunction for years. She shut down their story real quick, telling everyone exactly how much money I'd been giving them and how they'd been treating me in return. Suddenly, the extended family wasn't feeling so sympathetic to their financial emergency. Meanwhile, I'm getting updates that made my day infinitely better. Tyler had to return his fancy gym membership and started working out at the local community center. The same guy who used to post shirtless mirror selfies with captions about grinding and hustle mentality was now doing push-ups in a rundown facility with broken air conditioning. Chloe's social media presence became unintentionally hilarious. She tried to maintain her influencer lifestyle posts while clearly being broke. One day, she'd post about manifesting abundance, and the next day she'd be asking her followers if anyone knew about affordable meal prep ideas. Her engagement dropped to single digits because turns out people don't want lifestyle advice from someone taking the bus to McDonald's. The absolute cherry on top was when Dad tried to sell his vintage baseball card collection, his investment portfolio that he'd been bragging about for years. Turns out, most of the cards were worthless reprints he'd bought from late-night TV commercials. The whole collection that he claimed was worth $15,000 sold for $300 at a garage sale. Mom started cutting her own hair because she couldn't afford her usual salon visits. The woman who used to lecture me about maintaining professional appearances was now watching YouTube tutorials and ending up with hairstyles that looked like she'd stuck her finger in an electrical socket. I was living my best life in one of the most beautiful places on earth while they were finally learning what consequences taste like. After 8 weeks in paradise, I flew back to the States. But I didn't go home. I went straight to Ryan's office to plan the next phase of operation. Actions have consequences. "Welcome back, you magnificent person," Ryan said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. Ready to see just how deep the hole they've dug themselves. The situation was even worse than I'd imagined. Tyler had been fired from his part-time job for missing too many shifts while dealing with family drama. Chloe's influencer career was officially dead because she'd had to sell all her equipment and move back home. Mom and Dad were now 5 months behind on their mortgage with foreclosure proceedings officially started. But Ryan had been busy doing more than just watching the chaos unfold. He'd been researching some very interesting legal information. "Remember that lake house your family's been using every summer for the past 8 years?" he asked. "Yeah, the one I pay all the taxes and maintenance costs for. Funny thing about that property, you're still the only name on the deed. Legally, it's 100% yours. But they've been treating it like their personal vacation home. That lake house had been left to me specifically in my grandfather's will because I was the only grandkid who'd ever shown interest in taking care of it. My parents had always acted like it was family property, though they'd go up there every weekend, let Tyler throw parties with his friends, let Chloe use it for her social media photo shoots. I remember one particular weekend when I'd driven up to do some maintenance work, fixing the dock, cleaning gutters, normal property owner stuff. I found evidence of one of Tyler's parties from the night before. Empty cans everywhere, cigarette butts floating in the hot tub, and someone had actually carved their initials into my grandfather's handmade dining table. When I confronted Tyler about it, he just shrugged and said, "Relax. It's not like you live here full time." That was the moment I should have realized they saw me as a caretaker, not an owner. They felt entitled to use and abuse something that legally belonged to me, then act like I was being unreasonable for caring about the damage. "Time for some new management policies," Ryan said, with that strategic grin I'd learned to appreciate. We drove up to the lake house that weekend. I had the locks changed, installed a security system, and put up proper private property, no trespassing signs. Then Ryan helped me list it as a premium vacation rental prime lakefront location with a dock and hot tub. That property was going to bring in $4,500 a week during peak season. But that was just the warm-up act. Ryan had discovered something even better. "Phase 2, he said, as we drove back from the lake, is where things get really interesting. Years ago, when my parents had bought their current house, they'd needed a co-signer because Dad's credit was terrible. Guess who'd been young and trusting enough to help them out? That's right. My name was on their mortgage, which meant I had legal rights to the property and could demand accountability for the payments I'd been covering. We can force a sale," Ryan explained. "Market value minus what they owe equals your portion of the equity. And considering how far behind they are, they'd probably walk away with nothing." I stared at him. "You're saying I can legally take their house? I'm saying you can legally protect an investment you've been subsidizing for years without getting any recognition or appreciation." The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. Force the sale of the house, collect my share of the equity, and let them figure out their own housing situation. After years of treating me like their personal funding source, they'd finally understand what financial uncertainty actually feels like. But Ryan wasn't done yet. "What if I told you there was a way to make this educational experience even more impactful?" While we're talking strategy, I should mention that Ryan had been quietly building a case file that would make any prosecutor jealous. He'd helped me scan and organize every bank statement, every text message asking for money, every casual loan that never got paid back. We had documentation going back 6 years showing a clear pattern of financial dependence and entitlement. The most damning evidence was a group text thread from 2 years ago that I'd screenshotted but never really thought about. Tyler had written Mason such a pushover, watch this, followed by him asking me for $1,200 for emergency car repairs. An hour later, he posted in the same thread, "Told you guys it would work. Easiest money ever." Then Chloe responded with laughing emojis and "Teach me your ways, master." When Ryan saw those screenshots, his lawyer brain went into overdrive. "This isn't just financial abuse," he said. "This is documented conspiracy to defraud. They were literally bragging about manipulating you." Knowing that my own siblings had been laughing behind my back while taking my money was the final nail in the coffin of any guilt I might have felt about what was coming next. Ryan's final strategy was pure genius. He'd been quietly documenting everything. Every payment I'd made, every loan I'd given, every time they'd taken advantage of my generosity. And as a contract lawyer, he knew exactly how to make it all legally ironclad. We're going to give them one final opportunity to do the right thing, he explained. A chance to acknowledge what they owe you and start making things right. And when they inevitably mess it up, we'll have everything we need to resolve this permanently. The plan was elegant. I'd return home, tell them I was willing to help one last time, but only if they signed a formal agreement acknowledging all the money they owed me and committing to a realistic payment plan. Ryan drafted a contract that looked reasonable on the surface, but had some very specific clauses that protected my interests. If they missed even one payment, I could legally claim ownership of any assets that had been purchased with my financial assistance. The lake house, Dad's boat that I'd co-signed for, even Chloe's car that was in my name for insurance purposes. They're so desperate right now. They'll agree to anything Ryan predicted, and based on their track record, they'll mess up within the first month. I called Tyler first. He answered before the first ring finished. Mason, thank goodness. Where have you been? We've been so worried about you. Save it, Tyler. I'll be at Mom and Dad's house tonight at 7 o'clock. Make sure everyone's there. Mason, wait. I can explain everything. I hung up. Ryan and I arrived at their house exactly on time. I hadn't been there in months, and the place looked rough. The yard was overgrown, paint was peeling on the shutters, and Dad's boat was sitting in the driveway with repo notices taped to the windshield. The whole family was waiting in the living room like I'd called an emergency board meeting. Mom looked like she'd aged a decade. Dad was trying to act tough, but I could see the desperation in his eyes. Tyler looked like he'd been sleeping in his clothes, and Chloe was actually crying. All right, I said, taking a seat across from them while Ryan set up his laptop. Let's have an honest conversation. The next 90 minutes were absolutely beautiful. They fell over themselves, apologizing, making excuses, promising things would be different this time. Dad even tried to claim he'd never said those things on the phone, that I'd misunderstood his tone. Ryan sat there professionally taking notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions like the lawyer he was. So Tyler, you're confirming that you spent the rent money Mason provided on truck accessories. And Chloe, you used the business loan for a vacation to Florida instead of inventory. By the end of the meeting, they'd signed a comprehensive agreement without bothering to read the details carefully. I was now legally owed $186,000 in documented loans plus reasonable interest. They had 12 months to pay it back in monthly installments of $8,000. Or I could claim specified collateral assets. Thank you so much for giving us another chance, Mom said, actually hugging me for the first time in years. We know we made mistakes, but family is family, right? Absolutely, I replied. Family is family. Ryan and I left, and he was grinning like someone who just won the lottery. 12 months, he said. I'll bet you dinner at the best restaurant in town that they missed the first payment. He was wrong. They missed it by 2 weeks. The missed payment notification went out on a Wednesday. By Friday, I legally owned the lake house, Dad's boat, and Chloe's car. Ryan had all the paperwork filed so quickly their heads were spinning. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. It was Memorial Day weekend prime lake season, and I already had the house booked solid through Labor Day at premium rates. The previous weekend, Tyler had been planning to take his buddies up there for their annual guys trip. Instead, they got to spend the holiday weekend in his cramped apartment listening to him explain why they couldn't use the family lake house anymore. But that wasn't the end of it. The lake house was generating serious income as a vacation rental. $4,500 per week during peak season, and it was booked solid through the summer. Dad's boat was worth $28,000 and sold at auction within a week. Chloe's car went to a dealer and brought in another $15,000. I was actually making money off their inability to keep their word. The boat sale was particularly satisfying because Dad had spent years bragging about it to anyone who would listen. Custom-based boat, top-of-the-line, fish finder tournament quality, he'd say. What he didn't mention was that I'd co-signed the loan and been making half the payments for 3 years. When it sold, the buyer was a professional fisherman who actually appreciated the equipment instead of just using it to look important at the marina. Then came the phone calls, and they were more satisfying than I'd ever imagined. Tyler called first. Mason, come on, man. This is crazy. It was just one payment. We can get you the money next week, I swear. No, Tyler, you can't. You've been unemployed for 3 months and your credit cards are maxed out. You have no way to get $8,000. Chloe was next. You can't take my car. How am I supposed to get to work public transportation like millions of responsible adults do every day? Dad finally broke his silence. This is theft. You can't steal our property. Read the contract you signed, old man. Ryan made sure every clause was completely legal. But the absolute crown jewel was when Mom called, completely breaking down. Mason, please, we're your family. How can you do this to the people who raised you? We loved you. We supported you. We gave you everything you needed to succeed. You gave me nothing, I said calmly, but I gave you everything. My money, my time, my respect, and you threw it all away because you thought I was weak and would never stand up for myself. We're going to lose the house, she sobbed. Your own parents are going to be homeless because of you. You should have thought about that before you told me I was worthless and should disappear. The foreclosure proceedings moved forward exactly as scheduled. They had to sell everything. Furniture, electronics, Mom's jewelry, Dad's tools. Everything went to pay off debts they'd accumulated while living beyond their means on my subsidies. They ended up renting a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a rough part of town. Tyler had to move in with them because he couldn't afford his own place. 3 grown adults sharing one small space, no savings, no backup plan, no family ATM to bail them out when things got tough. The apartment was in a complex where the parking lot had more potholes than pavement, and the neighbors played music until 3 a.m. on school nights. Mom, who used to complain when her country club had the wrong type of people at the pool, was now living next to a guy who worked on motorcycles in his living room. Tyler went from having his own space and privacy to sleeping on a pull-out couch in the living room. The same guy who used to bring different girls home every weekend was now having to coordinate with his parents about when he could have company. His dating life essentially died overnight because turns out women aren't impressed when you have to ask your mom if it's okay to have someone over. Chloe tried to restart her business, but without transportation or money for inventory, she ended up taking a job at a call center. Her Instagram following dropped to under 200 when people realized she was broke and living at home. The self-made entrepreneur image kind of falls apart when you're taking the bus to your cubicle job. The call center job was perfect irony. After years of thinking she was above normal work, she was now in a windowless office building wearing a headset and dealing with angry customers 8 hours a day. Her coworkers were mostly college students and retirees, people who were working there as a stepping stone or supplement, not as a career crash landing. Tyler eventually found work at a warehouse loading trucks for $12 an hour. The same guy who used to brag about his high school football career was now wearing a uniform with someone else's name on it, taking orders from supervisors younger than him. Dad had to take early retirement because the stress of losing everything was affecting his health. Turns out, getting foreclosed on and having your credit destroyed makes it hard to maintain that financial expert image he'd cultivated. And me, I used the money from their assets to expand my business. Bought new equipment, hired more crews, and landed the biggest commercial contract in my company's history. Also put a down payment on a vacation home in Colorado. Bought it outright. No co-signers needed. Ryan and I celebrated the successful conclusion of our legal strategy by taking a fishing trip to Alaska. First-class flights, luxury lodge guides who knew all the best spots. We spent a week catching salmon and laughing about how perfectly everything had worked out. You know what the best part is, Ryan said as we were flying home? They did this to themselves. You gave them every opportunity to treat you with respect and gratitude, and they chose to be entitled and ungrateful instead. 6 months after everything was finalized, I got a text from Chloe, just 2 sentences. I understand now what we put you through. I know you'll probably never forgive us, but I'm truly sorry. I read it twice, screenshotted it to send to Ryan, and then deleted it without responding. 2 weeks later, Tyler showed up at my office. My secretary told me he was there and I almost had security escort him out, but curiosity got the better of me, so I agreed to see him for exactly 5 minutes. He looked terrible, thin, tired, wearing a uniform from whatever job he was working at the time. The confident jock persona was completely gone, replaced by someone who looked beaten down by reality. Mason. I need to say something. He started. I was wrong. We were all wrong. I treated you like garbage when you were the only one holding our family together. I didn't say anything, just looked at him and waited. I know you probably hate us, and I get it, but I wanted you to know that I finally understand what we did to you. We took advantage of your success and your kindness, and we treated you like you owed us something instead of being grateful for everything you did. You're right. I said you did treat me like garbage for years. Is there any way, any chance we could ever fix this? I'm not asking for money or help. I just want my brother back. I looked at this guy who used to mock me for being responsible, who used to call me weird for caring about my future, who had spent years taking my money while talking behind my back about how I thought I was better than everyone. Tyler, I gave you and everyone else in our family countless chances to treat me with basic respect. You chose not to every single time. I know, but there's no but. You made your choices, and now you're living with the consequences just like I'm living with mine. So that's it. We're never going to be a family again. We were never really a family to begin with. We were a financial arrangement that benefited everyone except me. He stood there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd change my mind. When it became clear I wasn't going to say anything else, he left. I went back to work on plans for a new commercial project, multi-million-dollar office complex with extensive landscaping. The kind of project that would have impressed my family if they'd ever bothered to ask about my work instead of just asking for money. 3 years later, I'm writing this for my custom-built home office. 5 bedrooms, 3 acres, and a workshop for tinkering with equipment. Everything paid for in cash. No cosigners required. My business now employs 47 people across 3 states, handling everything from shopping centers to luxury hotels. Last year's revenue hit $2.1 million with 30% growth projected. I bought that Colorado vacation home and spend my free time skiing, hiking, and enjoying peace, surrounded by people who appreciate rather than use me. Ryan's still my best friend, and now my business attorney. We're expanding into commercial property development. Turns out having a lawyer who actually has your back makes business profitable and stress-free. Through mutual friends, I've heard my family's situation stabilized somewhat. They're in that small apartment but paying bills without external support. Tyler got promoted to shift supervisor. Chloe landed a legitimate social media marketing job instead of running online scams. And Mom and Dad are managing on his pension and her part-time income after downsizing considerably. Do I feel bad? Not even a little bit. I gave them years of financial support and genuine care. They responded by treating me like their personal ATM, calling me worthless when I questioned the arrangement. Every decision I made was legal, documented, and justified. I didn't steal anything. I collected acknowledged debts and protected good faith investments. They signed contracts they should have read and learned actions have consequences. Last month, I got engaged to an amazing woman who runs her own graphic design business. She's successful, independent, and has never asked me for money. We're planning a small Colorado wedding this fall with guests who actually care about us as individuals. My family wasn't invited, obviously. I've learned family isn't defined by genetics. It's defined by mutual respect, genuine care, and reciprocal support. To anyone in similar situations, stop setting yourself on fire to keep ungrateful people warm. You don't owe anyone a lifestyle they can't afford just because you share DNA. Set boundaries. Protect your resources. Demand respect. If people can't meet those basic requirements, let them figure out their own problems. Life gets infinitely better when you stop being everyone else's safety net and start being your own priority.